All right. How's it going, everyone? We've got a Growth by Shawn podcast. It's been a little while. It's been a week or two. I've been trying to get Kyle on the podcast here. Kyle was sick. I guess it's fine, but whatever. So I've got Kyle Weber here, also known as Physique Coach U or whatever you want are on Instagram. I don't know.
AU for
Hey, you.
Australia.
Australia. Oh, I always thought the U was for like university. To be honest,
It's not being Australian is not a credential, mate.
I thought you was like university, but whatever. Usually, like, first off, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, thanks, Shawn.
Sweet. So, Kyle is I always like to give a little background on Kyle. I want to start things a little bit differently today, though. Normally, I start with like a little bit of background about like us. So, Kyle is actually like my personal therapist. So, I feel like this is going to be a really fun episode. I've been hyping this up to too many people already. I've got a lot of people that are really excited to listen to this one. So normally I'll start with, all right, this is Kyle, and give me a little bit about you and blah blah blah, all that stuff. But today, what I'm going to start with is Kyle. I want to ask you, who are you not?
Who am I not?
Yes.
Oh God.
Mate,
it's too early in the morning over here.
I have been cooking up like in my head like the tough questions, and this was the first one I came to. I was like, all right, normally I'm like, who are you, whatever, but who are you not? I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this to.
I'm not fucking ready for this, that's for sure. I'm not boring, as you can probably tell. Yep. I'm not someone that likes to play by the rules. I'm not someone that likes to do as they're told, for lack of a better word. It's really hard to answer this without saying, I am this, or I like this, or I do these things. So I don't not value that question. I guess it's hard to explain. I'm not someone that can be fit into one particular box, I guess would be a good way of explaining me.
Okay. So like someone that first reaches out to you, what are some of like the common misconceptions that someone might have with starting in a therapy type space? I feel like that's a good way to kind of start with things.
Reaching out to me in particular, I struggle a lot with the fitness demographic. Obviously, going through years being in fitness, nutrition, I've trained for 20 years, so my body's going to look a certain way. Competing in bodybuilding and fitness constantly my whole life has been a passion for me. I'll have a lot of people that will go in thinking that because of that history of my nutrition and fitness side of things in my life, that I just bring a whole meathead mentality into the therapy world, which, look, man, I do. Of course I do. It's hard to not be a meathead when you've been training and dieting in the gym for so long. However, there's a lot more that I believe that I can bring to people in a therapeutic sense and just helping out with nutrition and diet help. And often when people do come to me, they're quite surprised with how I can connect with them on a variety of different levels, just because of my own life experiences. I've learned a lot in my life, and I've been through a lot of different situations that have made me just learn about things differently. So I'm very inquisitive, and I like to understand. And as you and I have spoken about quite recently, Shawn, it's important to be curious about people and to understand why they are the way that they are, and how they think the way that they think, and how we can kind of utilize that to help benefit them more than anything else.
It's always been interesting to me, but yeah, that did come up in our last session about how curious I've been about everyone else. So the first question that I really wanted to start with here, excuse me, was what would happiness be in your own words?
Jesus Christ. I've got to wake myself up for this one. Okay, so I actually, why I struggle to answer that is because I don't like aiming for happiness. I don't think people should aim for happiness. Happiness, in my words, is temporary. I think happiness, for for us isn't something that we should be looking to achieve in our life. It's an emotion, same as sadness. Okay, we can have sad periods in our lives that happen. I find it very interesting that we focus on those sad periods of things that we ruminate over rather than having those happy periods to be the same. I think happiness is just an emotion that is a momentary lapse of reasoning sometimes, which allows us to feel a heightened sense of emotion and a heightened sense of joy. But it's also something that is always going to be temporary. So I believe happiness isn't a goal or a destination. It's just an emotion, the same as like what I said, sadness or frustration or being upset, nervousness. It's just like that. I think that the goal, if we're going to be aiming for something, is more to do with having more happy or joyous moments than down or sad moments, and leading to a greater sense of feeling overall contentness in our lives, which can be bolstered up in periods of time by happiness too.
Hmm. So do you think that the reason that that like as a society s- we like look towards wanting that happiness, is it because of a lack of understanding from like like if we were to take myself, is it like a lack of understanding that people have with what was I going to say, that that emotion is just temporary, or that we're like looking to find the next best thing always? Does that make sense?
Yeah, look, it's a bit of both. I'd also say
Okay.
that we strive to achieve a sense of happiness because we're unsure of what we're looking for within ourselves. We're going to feel most content and more joy when we're acting congruently with who we are and what we want to be and what we want to achieve. And we're not always going to know that, so we'll constantly be trying to search for this and that and try to figure out who we are and what we're doing in the world. And often that can cause us a sense of discomfort because we're feeling like, oh, I don't know where I am, what I'm doing, who I should be helping out, what I should be doing with myself, where my life's going. And we get so anxious and stressed about that. Sometimes we've got to be able to sit there and just go, I don't have fucking clue what I'm doing. And that's cool,
Mhm.
because think back to when you're a kid. You don't really have much direction. Like you're getting up, you're going to school, but you don't know. The world can be anything for you. You know, you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And you're going to have moments where you feel quite down. You're also going to have moments where you feel quite up and quite lively. But for the most part, we'll feel genuinely okay. And we'll feel genuinely like content with the fact that I'm just a kid. So I'm not needing to know what it is that I'm planning out with my life or where I should be and what I should be doing right now. In society, we place so much emphasis on decompressing and trying to sort through our down emotions, the negative ones that take things away from us. But we also don't put any emphasis on trying to actually sit with and feel those happy emotions that we get too. And so there's this, it creates this disconnect where we undervalue the things that make us feel good and we overvalue and place more priority on the things that make us feel down. People don't go to therapy because they start feeling so happy and they're like, wow, I really want to
Mhm.
like work through this emotion. They go to therapy because they're feeling like shit and they're like, oh, I gotta fix this. How do I do this? And we tell people, you know, you sit with it and you work through it. I think that we should work through the happy emotions too. I'd love it if someone can, you know, win a tournament or do really well in their SATs, or they can get some like they'll have an awesome achievement and they want to talk about it more. You know, we feel bad. I know, I'm not sure what the culture is like over there for you guys, but in Australia, it's almost like we look down on people that want to talk about their achievements. You know, it's this tall poppy thing where, you know, we achieve something, but then society will look at us like, oh, okay, well, that's great, but don't talk about it too much because then that's gloating. And we encourage people to try to talk about when they're feeling sad and, you know, it's not weak to speak and we want to be able to talk about our emotions, but that should encompass all emotions. And
Mm.
I believe that a big problem with happiness at the moment with society is that people aren't encouraged to talk enough about things that do make them happy and to own that. You know, we talk so much about, oh, I'm feeling bad and I want to express this, and people are encouraged to talk about, you know, how these negative emotions are impacting them and the situations that are occurring. But there should be more encouragement around, you know, just really owning the times that you feel great about yourself and the times that you do achieve something that's awesome, being able to sit with that for long periods of time. Because, you know, man, like if you have a situation happen, let's say you break up with a girlfriend or something, right?
Hmm.
How long do you think, if they were a really close relationship, how long do you think you stay sad or impacted negatively by that?
Um, I would say like at least like 3 to like 6 months, like
Right.
something
And
along those lines.
Exactly right. Now, let's say you hit a PB in a gym, or you purchase a property, or you achieve a certain weight goal that you wanted to achieve, or you go on you save a certain amount of money. How long do you stay feeling happy and good about yourself for?
Um, well, like a couple days.
Right?
Yeah.
So we spend 3 to 6 months feeling like shit because of a bad emotion and trying to sit there and work through it and process it. But when we have the good emotion, we don't spend anywhere near as much time focusing on it. We kind of like, it happens and we go, cool, awesome, on to the next thing.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
Whereas I believe if we put some focus into that and we go, wow, like let's try to sway that. Like, wow, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling joy. I want to delve into that. I want to break that down. I want to work out why I feel happy. I want to figure out what things I can do to continue on with this happiness. And
Mm.
we start obsessing over it. We start thinking about all the things that go into it. It can actually carry that emotion on for a lot longer, but we don't give it enough time.
So what does it mean to like actually sit with your emotions?
Sitting with your emotion is about not acting on
Mhm.
it. It's just letting
Okay.
it be there. So you can have something happen and
Mhm.
it can impact your life in a positive or negative way. And often it can spur us to feel like we want to do something about it and we
Mhm.
want to change it, or we want to understand why it's happened. Sitting with it is just letting it feel that way
Okay.
and giving it the time to feel, because we can't take an action, or we can't use that emotion to learn from something without feeling the full extent of that emotion first. So often, and anxiety is a big one for this, right? When
Mhm.
we're feeling anxious or nervous, it's the same pathway that occurs in the brain as to how we get that emotion. Often we can just rephrase the wording for it of what we're talking to ourselves about, and it can actually spur a different type of emotion. Same as excitement. We can feel anxious or we can feel excited. It does the same sort of thing physiologically to our bodies as well. But sitting with those emotions is about using that emotion so that we can feel the full extent of it without taking action, so that once we feel the full extent of that emotion, we then know what to do about it if there's anything to do.
Okay.
But
So
sitting is just being and
mhm.
being able to feel it. It's not dismissing it. It's not going, oh, I'm feeling off today, but I'm just going to continue on with my day. Okay.
Okay.
It's going, well, why do I feel off? Okay, I can understand why I'm feeling off. And then feeling off enough to be able to go, cool, I've validated and I've felt it enough so that now I can continue on with my day if I need to.
So, do you know how this like kind of started? Where maybe from like an evolutionary standpoint, where we don't want to like feel certain emotions? Like, was that always the case? Like with when humans were created to the point we're at now? Or,
It's different from an evolutionary standpoint, so I wouldn't be too sure on the like evolutionary argument behind it. But from
okay.
a societal argument, a sociological perspective,
Mhm.
it's changed a lot with like having a patriarchal society and going from men controlling things and being in these positions of like power, where emotions were shown as a sign of weakness. If we showed our emotions, if we felt certain emotions, it would be a sign of being out of control. And so as a result, we tried to control those emotions, but instead of controlling them, we contained them. And I think there's a very important distinction that needs to be made between controlling and containment, because not showing emotion doesn't mean that we're in control. It means that we can be dismissing it. Now, you can also not show emotion and be in control of it if you're taking the time to understand and contain that emotion consciously. So if you're consciously putting that emotion in a box, knowing that you're going to address it at some point, or you're consciously being able to use that emotion and go, cool, like I know what this emotion is doing to me. I know what it's causing me to think. I know what it's causing me to feel. And therefore, I'm also going to take a conscious action from the message that that emotion is giving me. That's being in control about it. It doesn't mean that we need to lash out and go punch something. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
that we need to start crying. It just means that we're thinking about it by sitting with it. Okay.
Mm.
And I think that as a result, I wouldn't be too sure when it sort of started that we needed to start sitting with these things. But
Mhm.
clearly, it's a case of people having emotional outbursts from being unable, being so incongruent with what they're doing that they don't know how to express it. So we will express things and we'll have these certain behaviors that we do that are a direct representation of the emotion that we're feeling. So if I was to come at you yelling and screaming and being quite violent, the vast majority of the time, it would be because I'm scared of something, not because I'm wanting to hurt you. I'm
Okay.
fearful of something that I'm not addressing.
Mm,
Now, you're not to know that if I was to start coming at you like a wild ape. But oh, most of the time it's a protective thing. It's something that goes, I see
mm,
danger. So I need to burst out as much as I can and use all this primitive environment that's built up inside of me to protect myself and to fight against whatever this threat is that I'm seeing. Okay,
mm,
so from an evolutionary perspective, a lot of the time that we come out of those emotions, we show those emotions, is because we're trying to express our amount of fear that we're having, but we're not conscious enough to say, I'm actually scared of this, because we don't want to. Okay, for some reason, we're in the society where we go, I can't admit that I'm scared because that means I'm weak.
okay. Um, there's a lot to that.
Oh, definitely.
Like every time that I speak with you, I sometimes think like I shouldn't have gone to college or anything. I could have just sat with you once a week and just picked your brain, recorded every session, and I would know so much more because it's wild.
Maybe if you're gonna pay me
Um,
in college fees, I'll take that too. It's all good.
but what I want to go to next, I switch topics a lot. Like I, as soon as a question pops into my brain, like I want to ask it. So why, in either an opinion or as a fact, um, do we compare ourselves to others?
So I'll give you both sides.
Okay.
Um, Factually, or I guess research will suggest that we'll compare ourselves to others because we're finding something, and it depends what sort of perspective you want to take. In psychology, there's a lot of different perspectives. Okay, from an evolutionary perspective, we'll compare ourselves to others because it pulls us higher up on the food chain. We see where the faster lion is running. We start to see how quickly that lion is able to get its food. And so we'll see that line and we go, wow, like it can eat so quick. And I'm getting really out of breath trying to catch my own deer. And this sucks. I wish I could eat like what that lion does. I wish I could be as quick as what it does because it can catch that really cool looking deer. And I'm stuck with this like shriveled up old deer that's like just managing to crawl across the countryside, right?
Mhm.
So I'm therefore going to look at this lion and think that it's quicker than me. It's better than me because it gets to eat more than what I do. Now I then have a choice. And I have that choice to go, do I want the meal that that lion has, or am I content with the meal that I have? There's no right or wrong to that answer. It comes down to me and my type of lion. And if I'm going, I want that meal, I then will naturally look at the other lion and go, well, what do I have to do to get that meal? And so it's a process of working ourselves backwards. So we'll compare ourselves in that perspective to see how do we get higher up on the food chain? How do I improve? Because I believe that most humans are wired to want more out of life. But there's things that happen that dull our sparkle sometimes. And often once we have a bunch of different situations, it can eat away at our motivations to achieve and our motivations to do things. Okay.
Mhm.
And depending on what it is that occurs, what kind of environment we grow up in, there's a big biopsychosocial component that comes with our motivations for doing things. So that means part of who we are, what we do, what we think, how we react comes down to our biology, comes down to our psychology, and comes down to our social environment. And that kind of makes us up who we are, what we do, our personality, and all things like that. If you grow up in an environment where people aren't really aiming to achieve things, they're not trying to improve on themselves, they're kind of stuck in a certain way, you're most likely going to be in that way as well, unless you expose yourself to another environment somewhere else that shows you that there's other ways. You could expose yourself to an environment where people are striving for more of themselves, and you see that that's inconsistent with your family system and the environment that you're in. It doesn't mean that you think it's wrong. It means that you open your eyes to another view of the world that things could be. The problem that we have is that when you see that, you could be opening your eyes to this extra environment, but everyone else that's currently in your environment doesn't see what you see. And so they will automatically go, no, you're wrong because that's different to us. You can't think that way. This happened to me growing up.
Mhm.
Everyone in my family, in where I live in Australia, I live in Canberra, and so that's the capital of Australia. It's kind of like Washington for you guys, and
Mhm.
it's very political. So there's a lot of people here work for the government. And so in my family, everyone kind of works for the government. They've got the typical 9 to 5 job and stuff and all that kind of thing. No one's really into the gym or into fitness or into anything like that. And I didn't fit in with that. I started to get into the gym and I started to like exercising. And thankfully for me, my environment, I spent a lot of time with my granddad growing up, and he was really into exercise. And so very different to my parents. And for him, I was able to go, wow, like I like this feeling of exercising and sport and training. And that got me into more of that environment where I'm watching more sport on TV, and I'm seeing that like to be an athlete, you've got to push yourself, you've got to try harder at things. And it comes about, seeing how much more you can get your body to improve. But everything else in my environment was telling me that I didn't need to do that and I shouldn't have to do that, and that was wrong. And so for 20 years of my life, I had this constant barrage of an environment that said, you shouldn't do this, that's not right. But because of the other environment that I exposed myself to, which was like, the sporting community, it was all, you're going to have people say this. You're going to have times where you feel like you're not enough. You're going to have times where it's hard, but you've got to keep going if you want to achieve something. And so because I saw that, then I started to cling more towards that side. But not everyone does. Some people can view the extra environment and stay in the environment that they're in and be comfortable with that. So it comes down to us making a choice, and seeing, where we're going to go with things and what we're going to want to do and kind of achieve in our lives. But comparison, I know they say, comparison's a thief of joy. I think it's quite contextually dependent, because if I didn't compare myself with people, there's a whole bunch of different theories of motivation, right? And why we do. If I don't compare myself with somebody else, then I'm not going to know where I sit in the food chain. And it could be, quite an egoic thing of me to say, but if I look at where someone else is at, and I know that they have things in their life that I want to have in my life, it will make me want to strive to achieve those things. And it will make me want to go, not so much I'm better than that person, but it will make me engage in a fight within myself that makes me go, if you want this, you've got to do this. Okay. This is the reward for the change in the person that I need to create. If I want to achieve something that I don't have, I need to become something more than what I currently am. Okay. Sometimes we'll compare ourselves to other people because we're judging ourselves as well. So you could look at a certain person, like let's say I was to look at Ronnie Coleman, and I'll go, man, like I'm so small. I'm nothing in comparison to him. But I can be 10 times bigger than some kid that's just joined the gym. But I'll still be comparing myself to something more, and it can make me feel like a lesser version of myself. Now, Ronnie Coleman's not making me feel that way, but I am, because I feel like I'm not at the standard that I want to be at. And that's the standard that I've kind of held myself to. Okay. That's where it can steal joy away from us, because when we're comparing or when we're judging someone else, it's a judgment that we're having within ourselves. So often that comparison that we have, it's like, I'm not currently at a level that I want to be at, and I feel bad about it. And I see someone else is at a level that like I want to be at too. And we don't take into consideration the fact that they might not be happy with the level that they're at either.
Okay. So when we look at something like this, and in comparison, I want what this person has, or I want to surpass this person in a certain aspect. How do we know that that's what we actually want if we don't have it yet?
Well, you can't hit a target that you can't see.
Okay.
Right. So we won't know unless we try. And I think what's important is just always trying. You could have something that I want, and I can go, awesome, I'm going to try for that. I want this thing that Shawn had. So you could have, let's say you just bought a new Corvette, right? And I go, Matt, I want to do whatever I can do to get that vet, because that vet looks really cool, right? And then I get it, and I go, I don't give two shits about cars. What do I do that for? Okay. The value in striving for what someone else has, or for more so for what's striving for what we don't have, is who we become along the way. So if I see that someone has something that I want, whether it be something material, whether it be a family connection, whether it be an environment that they have, whether it be a certain way that they live their life, you can see people sometimes you go, wow, like you just look so abundantly full of happiness. And you can see like, wow, that looks awesome. Like I want to be like that. Okay. You have to become a certain person, and you have to make changes to yourself in order to get that thing that you're after. And it might not be what you want long term, but what you learn about yourself and what you learn along the pathway of trying to achieve that thing that you don't have is so important to eventually getting what you want in life.
Okay. So why is so I want to switch, kind of make like a small switch here. Why is it important for everyone's success to look different? And why do a lot of us define success in the same way, as in like monetary success is the way that success like looks?
What do you mean?
So if I was to like if I surveyed 1,000 people and I said, what is success to you? And out of those 1,000 people, 900 said $1 million in my bank account. Why
Hmm.
is it important that like that is not the case?
Okay, let me ask you a question then.
Okay.
You're assuming that you're surveying 1,000 people that don't have $1 million in the bank account.
Okay.
What if you surveyed 1,000 people that did have $1 million in the bank account?
Okay.
Okay. What do you think they would answer with?
So what if I so like if I had given that survey to people that had $1 million in their bank account, would they say that $10 million was like the point of success?
Mhm.
Like I feel like that would be like the next like
So
uh
there's something that's
the
next,
yeah.
right? Yeah, cool. And what if you surveyed 1,000 people that had $10 million in their bank account?
All right, I see where this is going.
Okay. We're always going to strive for something else. Okay.
Okay.
And there's always going to be a motivation for something there.
Mhm.
Okay. Why we rely on that monetary aspect of success is because you're only going to have 1% of the population that reach that level.
Okay.
Okay. So automatically, the vast majority of us are already at a level that we're seeing where these people that earn a lot of money and are worth a lot are higher up in the food chain in the world, so to speak, in that aspect.
Mhm.
So we're going, I don't have that, so I want this. But if you talk to people that are at that sort of level, you will also find that the vast majority of them don't want that anymore. Okay.
Okay.
They can have that. And don't get me wrong, they'll value it, but they'll value other things too. Okay.
Okay.
I think that success is more about fulfillment and knowing what we're doing, contributing. Okay.
Mhm.
At the top of our hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. What is it that we are doing in our life that gives back? What is it that we are doing that provides purpose? Like why are we here? There's going to come a point that no matter how much money we've got in our bank account, it's not going to mean anything, because if we're not giving back in some way, if we're not creating a difference, or if we're not making an impact in the world, it's not going to make us feel like we've actualized ourselves.
Mhm.
So we will define that monetary thing because in society, there's not as many people that have that. So people will try to climb to get to that level. Okay.
Mhm.
But once they get there, you'll find that there's also not as many people that have healthy relationships, that are happy with their marriages, that have families, because they've had to give up a whole bunch of things. And so once you're there, it's like, cool, now success for me is having a family that loves me, being able to spend my time doing what I feel like rather than being tied to what I've got to do to maintain this level of income. Okay, things like that. So it's always going to change. And it's about whatever success is for you or I. It can be the same, it can be different, but it's about knowing what it means for you to feel that level of success. And as well knowing that, like, there's not this magic box that we can tick that goes, cool, now I'm successful.
Mhm.
Okay? There's probably plenty of different boxes that we can tick along our lives that will go, wow, I felt successful when I was doing this. But it's all temporary, just like happiness. Okay. When
Mhm.
I achieved this was a moment of success for me in my life versus I am a successful person.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, how do we start to look like inwards in a sense and figure out what is going to give us that like feeling of success? Or is it just like trying different things, or like
I
that
think we should,
feeling of
yeah.
purpose?
We should try everything. I think we get so stuck in trying to find what our purpose is. Man, I've changed so much in what I want to do and what I want to achieve in almost my life. And I know that there's still so much more time for me to figure out what it is. And I think if we accept the fact that, like, we have a hell of a lot more time than what we think we do,
Hmm.
um, that means that we've got so much time and freedom to achieve so many different things. and we will go through so many different situations, but we've got to expose ourselves to them to actually achieve these things. So
Okay.
if we're going to be chasing different successes, I think the key to going inwards is to first recognize that if we're aiming for success, then we can have a successful life made up of a whole bunch of successful moments rather than just my life has been a success. Okay? If I look at individual moments in my life, I can go, wow, that was a success. That was a success. That was a success. That was awesome. But if I was to look at my life as a whole and go, am I successful? I'm going to say no, because I'm not honing in on all the things that I have achieved. Instead, my brain starts thinking about the things that I haven't achieved. Okay? It starts going along the lines of like, oh, well, I don't have this yet. But at some point, I would have thought that, I would have achieved it, and then I've gone on to the next thing. And now that the last goal that I had is no longer as meaningful to me because I've already achieved it.
Okay.
So going inward about success, I believe, is about trying to find little moments in our lives that we can look back on and go, wow, that was a success for me. Okay. I used to do 10-pin bowling when I was a kid. That was my sport of choice, right? And for me, I'd done everything. I'd represented Australia. I captained my state. I did a whole bunch of different teams. I went overseas for a bunch of different competitions, but I hadn't bowled a perfect game yet. And for me, it was like so many other people that were in my position, they bowled multiple 300s, and I couldn't crack it. I had 299 countless times. Like it was so frustrating for me. And so I defined my success on when I bowled 300. It didn't matter what else I did. I'd had multiple awards, trophy cabinets full of shit, won so many different competitions, but it didn't mean anything to me because I hadn't bowled that 300 yet. The moment I bowled that 300, the week after, I quit bowling because I go, that is success for me. I achieved what I wanted to achieve. I didn't want to, like back then in Australia, it was really hard to do anything with bowling. Like it's really big for you guys over in the US. We had to get scholarships to go to college in the US in order to get on the pro circuit. Now it's a lot different. Like back then, you'd only get like 2 scholarships a year if you're lucky to go over there. Now, heaps different. People fly over there at will and just be able to hop on the amateur circuit, win their way into the pro circuit and things like that. But back then, I was going, I'm not going to do that. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to move over there. I like it. I enjoy it. But I just wanted to bowl that 300. And when I did, it was like, cool, I'm done. Like, and I look at my bowling career then as, yeah, that was successful. At the time, I didn't though, because I hadn't achieved that thing yet. And so once I did, I was able to go, cool, that's something I can put there. But I still look back now and I still see some of the people that I was friends with back in that time that have gone on and they have achieved like amazing things. There was a kid that I used to bowl against all the time. We're like kind of rivals between our states. His name was Sam Pooley. He's won like a couple of like pro comps over on the PGA tour, which is an incredible feat for anyone to do, let alone an Australian to do. Okay, because we don't have exposure the same way as what you guys do. And seeing them, I'm like, man, there are moments me like, I wish I stuck with that. I wish I kept going with it because that's success. But I'm only thinking of that success now because I didn't achieve that when I was in it. Okay. But when I was in it, it wasn't even actually a goal for me.
Okay.
So once I got my goal and I was able to go, cool, like that's success, I can block that aside. And I think that's what we should do. We should look at things and we go, what is my high level that I want to get to? And then when can I be okay with knowing that I've gone, cool, like, that can be put into a box now. Like I've achieved that and that's awesome. I'm happy, I'm content.
Okay. I got it. Yeah, that's a lot, but it makes sense to me. So I hope it makes sense to everyone else that's listening. I don't have any follow-up questions from there. Like I'm letting everything marinate.
Let it sit with it, Shawn.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but sweet. That's about all the time that we'll have for today. So I'm just gonna take a deep breath and call it and just go from there. So sweet. All right. We're logging off here. That's it.
Thanks so much for having me, Shawn. I hope it's added a little bit of value and input to people.
There's so much here that people are gonna have to listen a couple times through. Like I have to like write things down and listen through, and I don't even know how to take everything in all at once. My brain can't handle it, but but that's
I
just
don't know where it comes from half the time, man. There's so much shit that's clogged up in this brain of mine that I'm like, oh, just get it out somehow.
there's a lot with you. So Kyle, thanks for coming on today. All right. It was good. It was fun. And we will chat in a little bit. So
My pleasure, man. Thank
that's
you.
it.